Well, I think obviously Girardi would be the home run, right? 2009 leads the Yankees to the World Series championship over the Phillies. High-profile manager, managed in New York, used to the media, used to managing for a Northeast baseball team in a Northeast city where baseball is important. So I think Girardi's the home run. I think any of the three, however, are a good choice and will restore some credibility to the team, which I think the team needs kind of after the season that it had and after the press conference of what was it, 10 days ago or 8 days ago now, where they fired Gabe Kapler. So, typical fashion, they hire an inexperienced guy in Gabe Kapler, then you go experience for the next guy. I think it's the right move. I think Girardi's the home run, but I think all three get them the results they need, which is I think they need to be a playoff contender or, if not, make the playoffs next year.
John Middleton, open up that checkbook, man, because you figure the reports are Girardi wants to go where, right? I mean, wasn't he supposed to be eyeing like the Cubs job, for example?
Well, the reports are that he wants the Mets job.
Okay.
Basically that he wants the Mets job. And, it'll be interesting to see what plays out as far as that goes, because it's not going to go over well in New York if the Phillies hire Girardi and the Mets don't. So it'll be interesting to see, does a bidding war develop there? If a bidding war develops between the Phillies, between Middleton and the Mets owners, Middleton should win that. So, again, I think Girardi's the home run. I like Buck Showalter. He's a guy who's gotten results everywhere he's gone. He's been a guy who's able to turn teams around very quickly, get them in the playoffs, which is exactly what the Phillies need. Dusty Baker, obviously a proven track record, and obviously Dusty managed in Washington, won 95 games one year, 97 the next, and we know who played in Washington, the right fielder with the Phillies, Bryce Harper. So obviously maybe a little recommendation from Harper there. But I think the Phillies are making the right move. They needed to go with an experienced manager. They needed to go down this path. I like all three guys. If I had my choice, the optimum choice would be Girardi.
All right, Mike McGarry's with us, Press of Atlantic City. We have him on each Saturday as part of a South Jersey Sports Report to talk about high school football, but that's 2 Saturdays in a row that I can't resist and get your opinion on the Phillies situation because it is always in flux. What a treat you got to see last night in West Deptford, as I had to laugh, too, at your lead because, of course, St. Joe, of course the Wildcats are going to throw the football, said nobody ever. I mean, what a switcheroo, presto, changeo. And you talk about Jaden Schertel, basically convincing the coaching staff, let's play to the strengths here, coach. I can throw it and we can beat these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaden Schertel, St. Joe wins 14-13 last night over West Deptford. Big game. We had St. Joe number 5 in our Elite 11. West Deptford was undefeated in number 3. 2 of the state's best programs. We all know what St. Joe has done. West Deptford has won 7 South Jersey titles, I believe, since 2002. And Jaden Schertel, quarterback, 24 for 27, 199 yards, throws for a touchdown. And St. Joe throws for 199 yards. They run for 72, and you got it exactly right. For years, the joke around St. Joe's home field that it was a no-fly zone. The ball was never in the air. Well, it was in the air a lot last night, especially to Jada Byers and Cole Mercado. And St. Joe adapting with the times, spreading out the West Deptford defense, and Schertel coming through with a standout performance.
Guess it got a little close there, too, though. This Brandon Ratcliffe field goal with about 7:55 left, but the Wildcat defense holds.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great football game. Really, every possession, every play matters. And you mentioned the West Deptford kicker. What a great game he had. He kicks 2 39-yard field goals. And in the first half, he drops a 46-yard punt that goes out of bounds at the St. Joe 2-yard line, which leads to St. Joe fumbling the ball and West Deptford recovering in the end zone for a touchdown. So West Deptford's best player last night was their kicker. That kid was phenomenal, Brandon Ratcliffe. That 46-yard punt that went out of bounds at the 3-yard line was one of the best high school punts I've ever seen. So a great job by him. But St. Joe just is able to survive in West Deptford. Jada Byers continues his outstanding career. He scores 2 touchdowns. Really made a nice catch on the first touchdown. getting both feet inbounds at the corner of the end zone. And a kid who kind of impressed me, sophomore for St. Joe, Cole Mercado, some big catches, especially a 20-yard catch on a third down play on St. Joe's winning touchdown drive that kept that drive alive.
Hey, Mike, kudos also to Erin Grugan for all her pictures that accompany your story on the pressofAtlanticCity.com and in my actual hard copy of my paper that I subscribe to. That was outside my door in my blue bag this morning, customary. Didn't even have to take a step, just reach down and get it. The lead picture of 13 that are on the website. And airborne Jada Byers battles West Deptford's Devin Colon for a reception at the goal line as time ran out in the first half. Officials ruled Byers just short of breaking the plane. How different would the second half have been if they called that a touchdown?
Yeah, well, that St. Joe would have had the lead at halftime, and that was really a bang-bang play. Everybody had the video out and their cameras out looking at it right at the end of the first half, and who knows? Some people saw one thing, some saw the other, but that was a bang-bang play. But that would have put St. Joe up at the half rather than down 10-7. But either way, St. Joe was able to come out. They were able to get defensive stops. And really just a great job by Chertel. We come back to him. In that second half, he was 11 for 12. And the only pass that was incomplete that was a drop that probably would have gone for a touchdown. So just an outstanding day by Chertel, who is also, to no one's surprise, an outstanding baseball pitcher also. So, he can throw the football. And as he said, I said, when you came to St. Joe, did you ever think you'd throw the ball 27 times in a big game? And he just looked at me and said, I knew I'd persuade them, talking about the St. Joe coaches. And even Coach Sacco had a laugh afterwards. He said, never, never, never. And he said, sometimes we didn't throw the ball 20 times in a season back in the late 80s and early 90s. Well, times have changed.
Yeah, you got to roll with the changes. I think that's an REO Speedwagon song, but I'm not 100% sure. Mike McGarry's with the Press of Atlantic City as we recap the week that was and some games today, too. Your colleague Patrick Mulranen over at St. Augustine and Holy Spirit, and this was close, but St. Augustine did what they had to do, 21-7. Tell me your thoughts about that score and what you heard from Patrick about that game.
Yeah, St. Augustine, it seems, kind of wears Holy Spirit down, right? It was 7-7 at the half, and then St. Augustine kind of pulls away in the second half. What you see there is Nasir Hill for St. Augustine making some big plays, and that's just how tough St. Augustine is now. This was their third win in a row. They're now 4-3. Nasir Hill was a guy who was probably the number one option for the St. Augustine offense when the season started. Well, now that Carnell Davis has become eligible, their great wide receiver with 23 scholarship offers. Now that Kanye Udo, the tremendous sophomore running back, has become eligible, both of them transfers, they're now eligible. All of a sudden, you forget about Nasir Hill. Well, he reminded us who he was last night. He makes several big plays, and that's just how tough the St. Augustine offense is at this point. You can't just focus on Hill. You just can't focus on Davis. You just can't focus on Udo. They can hurt you in a number of ways, and they wear down Holy Spirit last night, 21-7. Third win in a row for St. Augustine. Holy Spirit drops to 3-3, but still plenty to play for the Spartans. They're still a state non-public 2 factor, and they still have the game with St. Joe in 2 weeks and probably a playoff matchup with St. Joe in a couple of weeks, and those 2 games will define Holy Spirit's season.
Here you go, Mike. Not only is Roll with the Changes an REO Speedwagon song, but it's off one of the greatest album titles of all time in 1978. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
There you go. I don't know if I had that album in my collection, Pete, but I certainly have listened to my share of REO Speedwagon songs over the years.
Well, sure, we had to take a date somewhere, right? Mike McGarry's
exactly.
With us, Press of Atlantic City. I'm not saying I'm leading off with the boys, but we all got to go somewhere. Okay, Mainland 38-6 over Middle Township. So that Mustang Chuck Smith unbeaten train rolls along. I guess Dave Weinberg got to get an up-close look at the Mainland Mustangs last night.
Yeah, Mainland 7-0, in the midst of their best season since 2008 when they went 12-0 and won the South Jersey Group 4 title. The Mace brothers last night, right? The freshman running back Jabril continues his outstanding season, 3 touchdowns. His older brother Jaquan returns an interception for a score. Mainland rolling on 7-0 and again, rolling towards that possible meeting with Ocean City in 2 weeks to decide that West Jersey Football League division. Ocean City gets a big win last night, 45-0 over Triton. You know, they were coming off a bye after that loss at St. Augustine 2 weeks ago, but Ocean City gets right back on track. So they're 5-1. Mainland is 7-0. You know what a big deal it is when those two schools meet in any sport, and we're 2 weeks away from what looks to be a really, really big game between those two schools.
Yeah, I'm already reserving my spot. If Mainland Athletic Director Mike Gatley's listening, I will be at that game, me +1, so please reserve my executive PT parking spot there and, get me set up there, Gatley, or anybody, Chuck Smith, whoever's on the Mainland staff listening. I'm coming out of my my hiding, my hibernation, because every Friday night, Mike, somebody says to me, well, what game you going to? And I said, I'm going home. They just can't wrap their heads around the fact that I'm not going to be on a sideline on a Friday night. But boy, if it's one loss Ocean City and unbeaten Mainland, I gotta get out for that. That's 2 weeks away, you said?
Yeah, 2 weeks from last night, that first week in November, and then the next day, of course, the playoff seedings come out, and that game will impact the playoff seedings as both those schools are Group 4 contenders right now.
Boy, it's almost like we planned this out, because speaking of playoff seedings, Hamilton goes to Winslow and wins last night, and not only was that big for the Blue Devils, but it was also big for their playoff possibilities too, I believe, right?
Yeah, big boost for them. Hamilton's having a great season, their best season since 2015 when they went 9-2. They're now 5-2. Jaden Abrams, the running back, star running back junior, continues to excel, and 3 touchdowns last night for Hamilton. So the Blue Devils roll on, and they're right there in Group 4, which is really setting up to be an interesting group, because you've also got Millville, who gets a big win over Bridgeton last night. They're 3-4, and because of Millville's tough schedule, Millville playing possibly for a Group 4 home game. So Millville, of course, started the season 0-3, but the 3 losses were to St. Joe, Williamstown, and St. Peter's Prep, 3 of the state's best teams. So Millville has kept it together. Not always easy. They get the win over their Cumberland County rival, Bridgeton, and they're right there in Group 4 playoff contention right now.
We ought to give some props to Buna, because they were a big winner again last night, 44-12 over Clayton. The Chiefs having a good season themselves.
Yeah, and that really sets up a great game next week. That'll be the Press of Atlantic City Game of the Week, and I'll be out at Buna next Friday night. Pleasantville goes out to Buna. Pleasantville with 1 loss. They'll be facing a Buna team that's won 5 or 6 in a row. I believe it's 6 in a row, and really dominated the opposition in those 6 games. I think going into last night, they had outscored their opponents something like 190-21 or something over the last 5 games. They get another big win last night, and they will meet Pleasantville, which is next Friday night, and that's really developed into a nice rivalry. Buna got the better of Pleasantville last year. 2 years ago, Pleasantville beat Buna, score, I believe it was in overtime. So kind of the 2 smallest schools enrollment-wise in Atlantic County. They're in the same WJFL division. The game next Friday will probably decide the division, and it's really became one of the better rivalries in South Jersey, and that's where I'll be next Friday, Pleasantville at Buna.
Sounds like a great matchup. Mike McGarry with us, Press of Atlantic City. Read his work at AC Press McGarry. And a couple other games from last night. Cedar Creek takes care of Oakcrest 42-6. No problem there. And Absegami, now is that 2 in a row for the Absegami Braves as they beat Morristown 13-6?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 in a row for Absegami. And, we kind of mentioned last week, they had the same sort of thing last season. They started off the season 0-4 and then rallied to finish 5-4. Well, they started off this season 0-4, and now they're halfway there, right? They get a second straight win. They beat Morristown 13-6, and they get their second win in a row. You mentioned Cedar Creek. They were off last week after dropping a game at Pleasantville. They're now 5-2. They're a Group 2 contender. They've got a big game. They host Delsea Regional next Saturday, which will be a big game for Cedar Creek. It seems like Cedar Creek, I don't think there's a Group 2 school in South Jersey that plays the schedule that they do, and they seem to have a big game every week, and they've got another one next Saturday when they face traditional power Delsea Regional.
And I know, Mike, there's a bunch of games today, like Egg Harbor Township is at Cherry Hill East. You've got Pinelands at Colts Neck, Wildwood playing at Lower Cape May. Somebody's going to win that game. Freehold Township at Southern Regional, a 1 o'clock start. These are all right out of my press of Atlantic City, delivered to my door this morning.
Right, and that's where after this interview, I'll be jumping in the car, heading over to Cherry Hill East. I'll take in Egg Harbor Township. Egg Harbor Township 1-4 this season. They've got a lot of young players. I'm anxious to kind of see them and see how they are as they face Cherry Hill East. And I'm interested to see a couple of Egg Harbor Township players. They've got a wide receiver and defensive back, Yasir Trinywell, who's had an excellent season. And I covered Yasir's father, Dink, who played for Atlantic City on the 1999 team that won the South Jersey Group 4 title. So it'll be a little bit of deja vu for me over there at Cherry Hill East today as I head out there to take in Egg Harbor Township and Cherry Hill East.
Sounds like a fun Saturday for you. Anything else stand out for you last night when you were checking tweets go by? Anything else jump out at you as you saw the scores come in?
Well, I think one interesting thing is Atlantic City goes to not much information available on this game yet. I have to track down some more today, but I believe Atlantic City got a big win out at Deptford last night. I think the score was 14-10. Deptford was 4-2. Atlantic City had kind of lost 4 or 5 in a row since beating Egg Harbor Township in the season opener. That's a big win for Atlantic City because, believe it or not, I think the Vikings are 2-4 or 2-5. But they're still in contention for a Group 5 playoff spot because of just how tough their schedule is. Remember, Atlantic City plays in that division with St. Joe, plays in that division with Timber Creek. And so Atlantic City will play Millville next Friday night in a game with playoff implications for both teams.
Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City. Again, follow him on Twitter at AC Press McGarry for all his updates. And I'll tell you this, Mike, 1978, so I was only 7 when that song came out. But if I ever bring up REO Speedwagon, I can't bring it up without thinking also of the guy getting on the microphone and saying, this will be a couple skate only. Make sure you go counterclockwise.